This is a channel about buying online businesses, and typically I do videos reviewing and analyzing listings of online businesses for sale. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different, and that is share some insight with you into something that I've been working on for a business I acquired because, well, it largely impacts all online business owners, and that is Core Web Vitals optimization. Now, just a quick primer if you're not familiar with Core Web Vitals. That is Google's assessment of how fast your page or your site is loading. And you can see right here that this site is failing. It says failed right there next to Core Web Vitals assessment. If it is doing well, it simply says passed in green. So you're either passed or failing. And why this is important, besides from the obvious user perspective, right? A faster website is better for users, is because Google also uses this as a ranking factor in your search engine placement. It's not a huge factor, so it's not terrible if you're failing it, but it is good to get it to passed. All right. Now, this particular site that I'm working on here is a WordPress site running LearnDash and WooCommerce. And if you're familiar with LearnDash and WooCommerce, you know that those are very heavy plugins or add-ons for WordPress, and it's further complicated by the fact that they may need to serve dynamic content. LearnDash in particular, and we're really going to talk about that a little bit more here as we talk into the pages and what had to be optimized, because the page that is really the problem serves dynamic content based on whether a user is a public visitor to the website or is logged in but has not started the course, or is logged in and has started the course, along with, where they're at in the course and material that is relevant to their own progress or indicators relevant to their own progress, right? So this was a very tricky thing to optimize for. Now, just to kind of give you a little overview here, starting from the beginning of where I was at with the site was failing Core Web Vitals, and we can see that right here. All right, and looking down here, we can see this page is actually doing very well right now. We're going to talk about the site and the pages in different contexts. I'm going to start with the site as I already have. So this right here indicates that the whole site is failing Core Web Vitals, right? But some pages are doing pretty well. And for the sake of that, forget about this because this is the optimized page and this has not been updated yet. All right. So when it comes to optimizing and getting this to pass, the first thing was finding out which page is causing the failure. And to do that, I simply went into Core Web Vitals here for the site. And you can see there are 110 good URLs on the site, but 23 that needed improvement. And if you come into the report, you can get a report and see, they're failing because of LCP, which is largest contentful paint. So there's a composition of metrics which you see here, LCP, INP, CLS, first contentful paint, etc. I'm not going to go too in depth on them, but these pages were failing because of LCP. And down here in the URL groups, if we open them up and take a look at them, we can see that there's a pattern, and that is that there are all these /courses page. And these are LearnDash's pages for each course. So the large culprit here is the /courses page, which are all very similar. Now, let me show you what that looked like before we worked on it. Here it is. In the content changes again based on whether a user is a public visitor to the site, whether they are a user or customer of the website, and whether or not they have started the course, right? So there's really 3 different states of this page in which it's loading different content for the user specifically and their relationship to LearnDash or their relationship in LearnDash, all right? And that makes this a very tricky page and a very heavy page because it's loading different content for all of them. So the site is failing it because of these courses page, or was failing it, or still is, it has not updated yet. All right, so the Core Web Vitals report here in Search Console told me where I needed to look and what I needed to optimize for. Now, coming back here to our page speed insights, this is showing the optimized page, which we're going to talk about. But before the optimization, the score was like a 30-something on mobile. A very, very poor score. Obviously, I've done very well optimizing it here. So it was doing very poorly here. With this page, I've since gone through and done some optimization, and I think if it's not clear, the whole reason why, the site was failing in general was because of these pages. So the focus here for optimizing things was on these pages, and actually, coming back to, not that screen, but this screen, the rest of the site was doing well. All the other pages are good, right? It is largely these /courses pages here that are causing, or were causing, the problem. So, what did I have to do to ultimately increase the score from, where it was in the 30s to this high 95 that we've got on mobile here? Very, very, very good score. Let's talk about that now. And in my notes, restating the issue, LearnDash content cannot be cached. That is a very big problem because the common solution to fixing all WordPress speed problems is just to stick a caching plugin in it and cache the page to the max. And then, the server is essentially serving up a photocopy of your website or of that page. Well, that can't happen because then users start seeing the wrong content and they start seeing content from other users. And if you've got the user's name, they could even see another user's name in there. So that is not effective. So while the whole site was doing overall quite well, right, as indicated by the good URLs, that's because they were caching and they're serving that cached content. But the courses pages have been excluded or had been excluded from caching because of that dynamic content, okay? So that is really the core issue here. All right, so how did I fix it and get the score up? First thing here was I actually removed the site from Cloudflare, or disabled Cloudflare, I should say. So my sites use Cloudflare as the domain name registrar and DNS provider for the sites. In Cloudflare, when you enable it, it provides some security benefits from a firewall perspective, and it also allows you to use the Cloudflare caching, which has some benefits in and of itself, but not when it is coupled with LearnDash and the exclusions that would need to be happening for the dynamic content on the site. Cloudflare can work with that if you use one of the paid Cloudflare programs, but A, you have to pay for it, and B, it does not work, or we could not achieve it using the free Cloudflare programs. Now, to keep everything concise and on the site, I just wanted to work with WP Rocket, which we have on the site. And WP Rocket is enabled with Cloudflare free enabled, but again, because these pages were excluded from caching, Cloudflare was not serving the caching and everything was slow. So disabling Cloudflare sped everything up quite a bit because now the traffic does not have to run through Cloudflare. It's just running right to the server. And I think this trips up a lot of people. A lot of people are like, oh, Cloudflare is enabled on my site. Great, everything's going to go fast. Not always. You really have to configure it right. And in some cases, particularly on these LearnDash and WooCommerce sites or any other site that's serving dynamic content, it can be problematic and the free plan does not have the settings that you need to optimize for it. And then, right, when you start looking at, okay, well, maybe I'll just pay for it on Cloudflare, well, then you start running into, well, we've already got this other thing that we're paying for, WP Rocket, which is caching, and you really don't want to have them together. It's one or the other. So yeah, anyways, I just decided to disable Cloudflare and run with WP Rocket. Next up, Elementor eliminated. All right, and this one is really, really pretty big. Elementor is quite heavy. It is quite heavy. So this page here, even with the dynamic content, was built using Elementor. what I did was I rebuilt the whole page, and this is what it looks like here for a logged in user, just using code, HTML, PHP. It's got a PHP file as the page template, and that's what this page is using. So Elementor for the body content, does not exist. There is no Elementor content for the body. The site, and I clarify that because the site is using Elementor for the header and footer. It's something I would like to change in the future because it is a little slow. But, considering the speed that we've gotten up to here, it's not really a high priority for me. Anyways, the whole page was rebuilt without Elementor in the body content. It's only being used for the header or footer. So that makes things faster because Elementor saves everything in the database. So everything that's coming out of there has to go through everything that's being rendered on the page, I should say, has to go through more database queries or calls to load the content. Now we don't have to do that. It's all just happening, or the server doesn't have to do that. It's all just happening in the actual code file without Elementor in the middle. So that was huge. And also by doing it, it allowed to do more specific, I should say, optimizations without having the Elementor clusterfuck in there. Like, yes, you can do speed optimizations with Elementor in there, but it's very, very difficult, and it's really just a pain in the ass. It's better when you really need to optimize for speed, get rid of Elementor or the page builder entirely and work purely on the code. So that was huge, and that basically got us there. Then these were things that I did once we got rid of it to actually get the speed up a little bit, right? First thing, inlined the CSS for above the fold. So the critical CSS above the fold. So the CSS that's needed to render the first contentful paint, FCP metric, that is happening in the actual PHP file, not in the external CSS file, which is loading the remainder of the CSS. So that's happening quickly, and that's basically the minimum critical CSS we need to get that FCP metric. First contentful paint here, right here, which we see at 1.7, and again on mobile, that is really fast. So that's what I did there. Second thing was reducing the PHP and database work. There is ACF fields, and that is Advanced Custom Fields plugin that pulls content in for like this stuff over here and up here and this. That is what do we do? I believe I cached that. So yes, pulled it all into one array and cached it. And that's how it's loading here. This content, the ACF fields don't change for users. We also cached the SVG icons instead of regenerating it. The course video, I applied a lazy load video wrapper to the video over here because that was pretty slow. And then deferred non-critical scripts. So anything that was in what would be the TBT, total blocking time. You can see there's two things in there right now, but they are relevant to the page substantially. Anything that was not relevant to it, that has been deferred or delayed using the Perf Matters plugin that is running on the site. So all of that, and this was that task right there, eliminating Elementor was really the heavy lifter, has led to getting this page to pass and get a very, very good score in Core Web Vitals. The next thing I could do, and I actually did it, but I commented out the code, was caching the hero section in sidebar. So this section in the sidebar, there is one instance where we display some dynamic content over here. So I did not activate it, but literally the code is in there. I could just comment it out. I just need to think about and figure out what I was going to do with the dynamic content here. It doesn't really need to be here. We could stick it into the body, etc. But serving this element and this element as cached would speed things up a little bit. But considering where I'm at now with the performance score, there wasn't really much use for me, at least, that I could see to expend the bandwidth and think about it. I just wanted to get it deployed. So that leads to the next big question: when will this site actually get passed for Core Web Vitals? Because right now it's showing the Core Web Vitals assessment failed, although we can see a very good score on the problem page. Well, it takes some time, and this score here, it says, is computed over the latest 28-day collection period. So I would expect that in 28 days at the latest, this site will shift to passed, or this, the actual assessment here will shift to passed. It may be a little bit sooner than the 28 days. In my experience, it usually happens in, say, 10 to 14 days if you're getting a lot of traffic. That said, the site was getting a lot of traffic in December because December is a busy month for this business. There's a deadline for our customer base of 12/31 for some of their reporting requirements. So January may be a little less. It may take that full 28-day period, but ultimately, I expect it to pass here in the 28 days, and it takes some time. If it fails in 28 days, well, then I will come back in here to these reports and see what it's telling us here about about why it's failing. I don't expect it to be failing here because, right, you can see the LCP issue longer than 2.5 seconds on these pages. Here we've got an LCP at 1.7, right? That's well into the green zone. Well into the green zone here. So I don't see why it'll fail, but ultimately, something to consider here, if it's not already clear, is that the Core Web Vitals assessment is based on your site as a whole. So while pages may specifically pass or get good scores, it's based on your site as a whole. And actually, I can make a good example of it here with this one. This is the home page, right? And this is an Elementor page that is cached. And you can see it's getting an 84. It's not particularly fast. It's going fast enough. It has been fast enough that it's not a problem. But this was, the homepage even before. This is what it's been for like a year. And it's getting a good score. And a lot of people would come here and look at this and go, okay, my homepage is doing well. Why the hell am I not passing? Well, you got to go into the actual search console and see what page is causing the problem. Now, interestingly enough, our heavy dynamic LearnDash page is getting a higher score than our homepage, which is cached. So that's actually something I am very happy to see and very proud of my work to do, I have to say. This page here, to get a higher score, we would probably... It's had a lot of work done on it. I forget what that work has been because it was done about a year ago, but we'd probably have to just get rid of LearnDash and rebuild this using pure code. That would be it. On that note, guys, that is what I have been working on. If you found this video helpful and insightful, you know the drill. Smash that like button to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. I am calling it a wrap and signing off on that note.